Planning Commission meeting now in session. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody could rise and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
And I'll take roll call. Commissioner Magai,
Present.
Vice Chair Heschler,
Present.
and Chair Keldorf.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Barely, but we got it. Public communications. Now is the time for anyone to come and speak about anything that is a non-hearing item. I don't see anybody in the audience tonight. Shocker. So we will close public communications. Are there any written communications?
No, nothing has been received nor distributed.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion to approve the minute? I think the only item is our meeting minutes.
I will move.
I will second.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is it a roll call? No. Vote. Okay. Feel free to nudge me in the other direction. We're moving on to our continued business, but I see that it's the recommendation that we'll continue this item to March 23rd Planning Commission meeting. It's an environmental assessment and review, what we talked about at our last meeting, an additional backup generator at 444 Nash, so they need a little more time.
Yes, the consultant had gone out of town, and so they were trying to get a hold of AQMD, but from a staff perspective, we kind of think we know how to handle it, but we wanted needed the applicant to get some assurance from AQMD. So
And we wanted the applicant here, because last time it was just their consultant. and she
right.
didn't have all of it. Okay.
So
Okay, great. And I will take a motion to continue this item to March 23rd.
So moved. I will second.
Okay. Commissioner Magai,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heschler,
Aye.
and Chair Keldorf.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, moving on to new public hearings, new business. I'm assuming this is a staff report, general plan implementation, and annual general plan housing element progress report.
yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to our principal planner, Paul, here. He's been working on, as you know, the housing element, and there are certain things that are that we as a city, as required by all cities in California, is to report on the status of our housing element as well as our general plan on an annual basis, and then that gets forwarded on to City Council, and we do have to submit that to the state by April, and so anyhow, so Paul's been working on that and reaching out to the various other departments to help us put this together. And so he'll go ahead and give you a little bit of information on that.
Okay, good evening, Chairperson and fellow commissioners. I will try to make this just a quick summary, and I'll be happy to take questions afterwards if you like. So every year, as Eduardo said, we are required to report to the state on the status of our general plan implementation in general, and then specifically our progress on our housing element. Those reports are due by April 1st every year, and after tonight's meeting, we intend to present the same information to the City Council at its next meeting as well. And then shortly after that, we will submit our reports to the state. Regarding the general plan implementation, the state law doesn't have a lot of specific guidance on what is to be reported. But our report has sort of the meat of it include what has been the activity at the Community Development Department in the last year, and what is our progress specifically on each of the general plan elements, the different goals and objectives. So a quick highlights of the Community Development Department activity. We've assisted 1,800 people at the counter in 2022, processed approximately 2,000 building permit applications, conducted more than 5,000 inspections, processed 22 planning entitlement applications, and held 12 planning commission meetings. And we initiated through our neighborhood preservation office 232 code violation cases. We've been putting an emphasis on that in the last year or two. These are the 10 elements included in the city's general plan. Those are not all the same in every jurisdiction. There are 7 required, and the city had 3 additional elements. And so some highlights from a couple of those elements, just to give you a sense. So regarding land use, the land use element, we had the PCC specific plan adopted last year. We had the new housing element adopted last year, and we initiated an update to the city's downtown specific plan. On the circulation element, we adopted, as part of a comprehensive fee study, a new traffic mitigation fee to help to pay for new infrastructure and streets, sidewalks, and so forth. We initiated the engineering design on the Park Place extension and train track relocation project. We completed the design on a bicycle path along El Segundo Boulevard, just east of Pacific Coast Highway. We initiated the engineering design for the Nash Street extension that will be going from El Segundo down to Hughes Way behind Plaza El Segundo. Let's see. I think I included the same slide twice. I apologize. With regard to the housing element annual progress report, the state does have some fairly specific requirements on what is to be reported. So it includes our building permit activity, so specifically residential units. So in 2022, we issued 30 permits for accessory dwelling units. We issued or approved entitlements for the Pacific Coast Commons project. That included 263 units, some of those affordable, and another residential condominium project with 8 units. This is the list of the programs in the city's housing element. And we'll just go briefly over each of these programs and some of the progress we've made there. Our residential sound installation program, that program is anticipated to resume and administered by LAWA. So the city will coordinate closely with LAWA and assist with doing outreach to the community so people are aware that this program is resuming and so they can apply and get their homes treated. As I mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of activity in code compliance. We conducted, out of those 232 cases, we conducted 87 residential property inspections. Regarding ADUs, our housing element calls for sort of incentivizing ADU construction, facilitating ADU construction. So this is an ongoing program. The city is participating in a COG program to research, study, analyze, and come up with different types of incentives and programs to assist residents and cities to increase the production of ADUs.
Paul, can you talk a little bit about that? What is that program, and what are you guys trying to learn and fund ultimately?
Well, this is a COG grant funded program, and the COG is basically trying to analyze, what are appropriate areas to where we can approve ADUs. What kind of regulations or incentives cities can provide. That's the main intent, to study them and what are appropriate regulations or incentives to just help facilitate their construction. There are also some funding sources through the state, through the Housing and Community Development Program that we are looking into and the city will be looking into. And we will be, and kind of transitioning to the next item under that bullet, we will be posting a lot of information on our website for residents, sort of application information, any incentives that we can, as a city, can provide, and also sources of funding for ADU construction. HCD has a program that both cities and property owners can take advantage of. So the property owner could submit an application for direct funding for an ADU, but the city can also do the same and sort of run a program using those funds. I hope that helps.
Yeah,
Commissioner.
I just was not aware of the program, and I was just curious where the funding goes. I mean, does it help the city staff up to help manage these things? Does it,
Actually, I don't have a lot of information based on what I saw online so far. So part of the work that we need to do is familiarize ourselves with these funding sources more, and then decide on what do we want to apply for funding and what kind of a program do we want to initiate. And so I don't have the answer to that particular question, whether hiring staff would qualify as an expense under this particular program.
gotcha, and that's okay. But for
Yeah.
HCD's point of view, it's a mechanism to help make ADUs a little more easy for residents or to go through that process.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Program number 4 regarding the inclusionary housing ordinance and affordable housing strategy. If you recall, we worked on a feasibility study regarding inclusionary housing and a potential ordinance. Our grant efforts sort of refocused towards the feasibility of increasing density in the R3 zoned areas. So that's something that we have made progress towards, and we have found that, yeah, there are densities that can incentivize the construction of affordable housing in the R3 zone. Another part of it is developing procedures for streamlining projects. In other words, going sort of fast track, and avoiding unnecessary entitlements to approve housing. That's something required by SB 35. We've made progress on density bonus, transitional housing, and micro-unit regulations, and we will have new regulations adopted within the next couple of months. Regarding the urban lot split state law, last year, if you recall, the city did adopt regulations to guide the the splitting of R1 lots. Next, this year and next, we will be developing sort of a checklist for property owners so they know exactly how to apply for and anticipate all the steps involved in doing so. The main program in the housing element is providing adequate sites for development of affordable housing. So the PCC specific plan project actually did help to address the shortfall from the previous housing element, the 5th planning period. And
Paul, can I ask first, at what point do those units, I guess, what's the process for actually getting RENA credit? Do they have to be fully constructed and then we submit something to the state? How does that feedback loop work?
typically every year we report on the number of permits we've issued for residential units. So that'll be the point when we get credit for it. So the applicant for that particular project, as you can understand, due to market conditions, they're looking at their financing and so forth, but they told me that they don't expect to, or they expect to initiate construction not earlier than the end of the year. So potentially right at the beginning of next year, but we don't know yet, but not before that. Moving on, completing the mixed use and housing overlay rezoning, that if you recall that from the housing element discussion, we anticipate our goal is to complete that this summer. That is one of the main sort of conditions from HCD for certifying the housing element. In addition, this same program includes developing objective development standards for residential or mixed-use residential developments, so that they can avoid the entitlement process. changing the code to allow by right approval of affordable projects that include 20% affordable units, completing our downtown and Smoky Hollow specific plan updates, which will also include regulations for residential uses. So we anticipate completing those before the state deadline because we've been working on those particular updates already. The next program has to do with no net loss monitoring. SB 166 requires cities that to essentially monitor the loss of residential units and affordable units. So if a project results in demolition of a number of residential units, then that same project, or the city at least, is responsible for replacing those lost units. Okay. So we are expected to develop a procedure this year for monitoring that. It's basically setting up a spreadsheet and just keeping track of permits. That's fairly simple. And then just on an ongoing basis, monitor those numbers. The lot consolidation program, basically to develop some strategies to encourage lot consolidation, because that'll help achieve some of those densities that we envision in the housing element. There are many code amendments that were listed in the housing element, so we've made progress on some. Density bonus, transitional housing micro units, as I mentioned. Other amendments such as updating parking regulations, updating the R3 densities, regulations regarding senior housing and group care facilities, and so on. Program number 10, community outreach. This program envisions sort of robust community outreach activity on an ongoing basis every year, holding community meetings and reaching to out to the public using other means as well, you know, social media, city website, and so forth. The Fair Housing Program is the last program in the housing element, and this involves participating in any federal, state, or regional efforts to promote fair housing. The county has certain programs, and the city participates in sort of activities and planning in that regard. Community outreach, again, to specific target populations, providing information online regarding fair housing, and then continuing to provide those same service programs that we provide on an annual basis. That is kind of a quick summary of the programs and some of the activity in the last year. And that's what we'll be reporting to the state in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Any questions for Paul from staff?
No, it's a robust document, and you guys have done a lot of work on that, so it's impressive.
Thank you.
I have one question on the residential sound program. If memory serves, there used to be a boundary associated with that. Is there still a boundary in the city? People
I think you're
starting
referring to
to
the
ask.
zones, the sound zones. I believe those are still in place, they still apply. I don't believe there has been any sort of
They haven't expanded it at all.
amendment, yeah, or change to that.
So it's just reopening it for people who didn't go through the application process
Correct.
previously. Thank you. Yep, I don't have anything else.
No? Mm-mm.
I guess I should also echo what Jay said. I didn't have any questions, but just looking at the list of things that we do and that we're a part of, you know, each meeting, it's very impressive, and you guys should get a lot of kudos for that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, real quick, so at the end of our packet is the letter from the HCD guy who says that everything looks great except the rezoning needs to be in place.
Right, the rezoning needs to be in place, and we need to make progress towards meeting our goals, because there are some deadlines that we are supposed to be meeting. So in addition to completing the rezoning, we have to show a good faith effort towards implementing those goals and meeting those deadlines.
So even though the document is going to be submitted April 1st, the rezoning might not take place until summer of '23, right? And that's okay?
This particular document is simply a report on our progress so far. So yeah, the deadline to submit the report is April 1st. completing the rezoning is sort of a separate
Gotcha.
item.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just a receive and file, so no action needs to be taken on our end. Thank you very much, very comprehensive. Any report from Community Development Director?
No, nothing to report. As you see, Michael's not
Yeah,
here
or-
today, so.
Or Eduardo, I should say, or designee.
So, yeah, he's on vacation, well-deserved vacation, so he'll be back at our next meeting, so he'll be ready to tackle on more issues.
Thank you. I feel like
Thank
we're
you.
gonna have a robust 23rd meeting,
That's right.
blocking out some time. Anything from the City Attorney's Office?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Then we are moving right on to Planning Commissioner comments.
No comments from me.
I have none.
I would just like to say congratulations to Mario Inga. I think he was confirmed on Tuesday as our newest planning commissioner. Do we know, will he be at the meeting on the 23rd?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, you're right. So on Tuesday night, the city council, actually, no, now it kind of triggered something to also, another second thing to also let you know. So first, Mario Inga, he was selected as to serve out Ryan Baldino's remaining term. So we're gonna hopefully, we're coordinating with our city clerk's office to get him sworn in, with the goal to ideally get him on board for the next meeting. So, yeah, so hopefully he'll be here for the next March 23rd meeting. Second thing, I guess I should just let you know, even though it's not really a planning issue per se, at the last council meeting, the council did adopt the pilot program for the one-way streets over in the Smoky Hollow. As you probably all remember, there was some of those areas or streets were going to be converted to one-ways to accommodate for additional parking. So so our Public Works Department, our colleagues there, have been working on that and identified those 3 streets, and the council approved the funding for that pilot program. So that should be coming soon, and hopefully that'll be that'll be something that turns out with good results. So.
And Eduardo, do you know if that is, we were talking about the last parking study that was kind of a failed mock-up, if you will, on El Segundo Boulevard. Is this new one, they're gonna stripe the road, with angled parking?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other improvements that are planned in that test? And whether that's additional landscaping or anything else to kind of give people the intent of what that's really going to be if it's successful?
Yeah, so there'll be the striping. The goal or the way in which it would be rolled out if it were a permanent situation is that, yes, there would be areas where the intersections would have kind of bump outs, which would accommodate for some additional landscaping and more pedestrian areas to gather. So those, through the pilot program, because that's just a pilot, temporary type of situation, the city's not gonna spend that kind of money to actually do that. So unfortunately, what you'll see is kind of like, you'll see those cones that will at least represent the location of those bump outs. And of course, that's also a way in which to ensure that larger vehicles, because they did these studies there to ensure that that there's enough room for vehicles to make right turns or left turns at those intersections, and can accommodate vehicles up to 30 feet in length.
Gotcha.
So with those cones out there, that'll also be a good indicator as to how effective those are.
And that would maybe start end of summer?
That I think sometime in 2023. I will not.
Whenever someone can get it done.
I will not commit our
Understood.
Public Works colleagues to a
Understood.
certain date. Yes.
Is that something that is publicly noticed? And I just ask because once those, when those white bolsters showed up on El Segundo Boulevard, I think everybody freaked out a little bit that was somehow what it was gonna look like forever. So a way to tell the community, this is a pilot program, we're testing it out. Just so that they don't think the cones are what it's gonna look like permanently.
Right. No, that's a good idea. Fantastic idea. I think we'll definitely plant that seed, just because at least from a planning standpoint, it's kind of in our nature to try to get the word out like that. I'm sure they do, and we can assist them in whichever way we can. But we'll offer up, the Gov delivery system. That's always a great way to do it, and some of our other colleagues in communications to, at least point them in the right direction to get that word out.
If I may, Eduardo, when the Public Works Department initiated that other pilot project, they did send out mailers to property owners in the area and invited them to a meeting which was held here at the council chambers where we went over the project. There were, I think, 7 people in attendance that evening.
And I'm not
Yeah,
surprised,
I know.
I'm surprised
So
it was that
even
many.
though-
Even just posting it on the website, like, this
Yeah.
is a pilot program
So,
for
I anticipate
residents
that,
driving
I
that area.
anticipate that there will be a mailer that goes out, and we'll see what else the Public Works Department, or if we help them, we
Yeah.
can do to supplement that effort.
And maybe renderings of what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
I mean, and you guys did all the right things to let people know about the El Segundo Boulevard one, but the truth is, people don't pay attention until they drive past that. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, what is that? That's terrible, like, let's not do that. So just anything that we can do to make the experiment more successful, because if the test is flawed, it doesn't go very far after that.
Great. Okay, well then I think if that's all. No, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So then we are adjourned.
Nice.
Back to baseball.